Test, 1, 2. Test, 1, 2.
Number 15 is to be, then we'll be, maintenance services,
Can you check, can you give me a sound test?
and then the,
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, thank you.
and then the,
Take one more minute for these things to come up, as we're still not on.
Operator, can I just check in with you, make sure you're there?
Oh, man.
Operator, are you still on the line? Okay, thank you, just checking.
okay.
How late is Del Taco open? Del Taco, the new one. It is the one by 24.
What, is there taco?
We have it on the show.
Oh, is there taco?
I haven't been there. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You're good? Audio check. It's gonna break anyway.
Operator's still here.
Are you sure? For how long in the meeting? Alright. We're ready when you guys are.
Oh, okay.
Did I tell you the one about Verizon?
Is Jeff ready? I mean, we're back. Okay, Jeff, it's yours.
Okay, so I don't know where you left off, but I think we were in the midst of alternative 4 here on the Virgin Diamond.
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're good.
Okay, so just to kind of wrap this up somewhat, so a few more things. So pedestrian and bicycle access for these is they would actually be pushed into the center median. So they would be protected, but where these transitions happen from one side of the road to the other is the pedestrians and potentially the bicyclists would end up in that center median you see there. There is an option also that we would look at as well. So bicyclists, if it was like a class 1 bike lane where it was on the right shoulder, you could remain on the right shoulder and switch directions with the vehicular flow, and you would just, when you transition back to the other side, you would be right in the same place you would for any other class 1 bike lane. Those are things we will look at. Obviously, the existence of the bike lanes within the traveled way potentially narrows the vehicular lane size. But there are advantages as well in order to maximize shoulder lengths and have a better buffer there in the center median. So those are things that will be analyzed a little bit further as we move forward. You will notice in both alternatives 3 and 4, Joshua Palmer is abandoned from essentially just west of the Hampton Inn, realign northerly for a few hundred feet, and then proceeds westerly to a new intersection at Highland Springs with kind of in between the Wendy's and the Burger King on that side of the road. So it would be an aligned intersection. To be determined whether that would be signalized or not. That's pretty close proximity to the westbound ramps. So efficiency-wise, it may make sense not to, but that is still to be determined. Delays for any of the alternatives, 2 through 4, are obviously much improved and nothing at all, but they're still very operate efficiently, and that's why we're further analyzing all of them. The associated delays in the storage with the Virgin Diamond appear to be a little bit better at this time, but it is a little premature to make recommendations solely based off that. Now, I will say that, so we were, early on, we were looking at a horizon year on this of 2040. Caltrans is most likely going to require that we have a 20-year duration from commencement, which would push us into 2045. But we do need to be clear that although the purpose of the project is to vastly improve the efficiency of Highland Springs, this is not the ultimate scenario. And in any situation, if we had an ultimate scenario that was consistent with both the horizon year for our new general plan and banning as well, it would require a whole new bridge. And so we are unable to operate efficiently on the underpass. We just do not have the width to squeeze enough lanes in order to get the capacity. So in that scenario, it would yield a complete new bridge construction. Preliminary cost estimates are still not there yet, but it could easily go from a $40 to $100 million project. And the likelihood of being able to fund that maybe is reduced. But that is the reality of where we are now, and with the options that we are pursuing. So where do we go from here is the next steps. So we are hopeful and expecting to have the completion of this PSR spring next year, April 2021. The following steps for that would be the PAED, which is the project approval and environmental document. We are shooting or targeting April of 2023, so about a 2-year effort, largely due to the environmental requirements. And then about an 18-month effort for the plan specifications and estimates of PS&E, putting this at the end of October or the end of 2024, and hopefully going out to bid for construction in early 2025. Obviously, this is largely contingent on funding as well, but this is what we are targeting as it sits right now. This is a receive and file, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Very good, Jeff. Very good report. Do we have a public comment on this, or?
Operator, do we have any public comments at this time?
We don't have any comments at this time.
I do have one written comment that I can read.
Okay.
This is from Ron Roy. Dear City Council, thank you, and I support the proposal for the diverging diamond interchange. However, to facilitate convenient, safe, and speedy northbound, southbound travel by public transit, please consider an option which includes a separate dedicated public transit lane or lanes in addition to the vehicular lanes. Also, please consider robust pedestrian and bike lanes. There are numerous examples, often DOT videos of these added features in existing DDIs. Thank you for considering these additional features to a DDI.
Very good.
No other comments.
Okay. Thank you. Open for discussion, questions? Council? If not, need the motion.
Mayor, I move to receive and file.
I'll second.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Councilmember Carroll? Did she say yes?
Yes.
There you go.
Mayor Pro Tem Lara?
Yes.
Mayor Santos?
Yes. Thank you, Jeff. Okay, action item number 15, rejection of a bid in response to a request for proposal for weed abatement services. Staff report, Christina Taylor. Whoa, you stood up.
Good evening again. Before you tonight is a request to reject a bid that was received in response to a request for proposal for weed abatement services. As you're aware, the city utilizes independent contractors to perform weed abatement throughout the city for both privately owned land and land owned by the city. Weed abatement is a function of code enforcement. However, code enforcement works closely with community services staff to make sure that city-owned parcels are monitored and that weed abatement services are performed. There's approximately 115 acres of open space of city-owned property, and there are approximately 600 or a little more vacant privately owned parcels that the city ensures weed abatement takes place on. So Beaumont does contract with multiple vendors. We incur charges for these, and for the privately owned lots, the cost is recovered through invoices, liens, or assessments on the property tax roll. For the city-owned lots, we pay for the weed abatement services through the general fund. There are 3 contractors that are currently providing weed abatement service to the city. The purpose of this request for proposal was to expand or hopefully to expand the list of contractors that are available to the city to perform the weed abatement services. The city received numerous inquiries or numerous looks at the proposal, but we did end up only receiving one response. And the response received by Mariposa Landscape was much further out of the range of what we currently pay for some of the primary services that we need. And so staff felt that it was appropriate at this time to come forward and request council would reject this proposal. So I'm available if you have any questions. Staff is recommending that council reject the proposal from Mariposa Landscapes.
Very good. Any public comment on this, Nicole?
Operator, do we have any callers on the line?
At this time, we have no callers on the line.
And I have no written comments.
Okay, open to our discussion or motion.
Mayor, I move that we reject the proposal from Mariposa Landscapes Incorporated.
I'll second.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Councilmember Carroll?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lara?
Yes.
Mayor Santos?
Yes. Thank you, Christina. Okay, item number 16, approve payment wildlife protection invoice from Cal Fire. Staff report, Jeff. On count. Jeff, you have to, there you go. Thank you.
Sorry. I was really on a roll too. Anyhow, thank you, Mr. Mayor of the City Council. Before you is the request to approve a payment to the Department of Forestry and Fire Protection, also known as CAL FIRE, in the amount of $43,338.12. This is a service they provided to the city for a couple of years now, looking back on the history, and this is a little bit more than we paid last year, but not been pretty much in line with the costs from last year. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Very good. Any public comment, Nicole? Again.
Operator, do we have any commenters on the line?
We have no callers in the line.
I have no written comments.
Very good. Discussion?
Mayor, I move to approve payment of the invoice for fire protection services to the Department of Forestry and Fire Protection in the amount of $43,338.12.
I'll second.
I'll second.
I beat you.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Councilmember Carroll?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Lara?
Yes.
Mayor Santos?
Yes. Thank you, Jeff. Okay. Action item number 17, discussion and direction regarding Western Riverside Council of Governments, which is WRCOG, proposed projects or programs for fiscal year 2021. Staff report. Mike Lara.
Yes, Council. Really quickly, we had, I had a meeting with the Executive and Finance portion of WRCOG. They're looking to see whether or not they want to spend time in developing either one of or all three potential projects. You received the presentation earlier. One option is the formation of Economic Development Corporation. Option number 2 is a GIS modeling to provide services to other member cities. And then option 3 would be a formation of a sub-regional housing trust. As those were presented to me, I felt it would be a good idea for me to get input from council here so that I could take that back to WRCOG and let them know which programs, if any, that we would support. I did have some concerns with one of them, but I did want to get your feedback and not give you any of my feedback. I didn't want to prejudice you against any of these projects.
Okay. Very good. Any comment on this before we go? Public comment, I would say.
Operator, do we have any public comments on the line?
No comments at this time.
I have no written comments.
Very good. Thank you. Discussion? Council?
I'm just waiting to see if anyone else.
Anybody else to
Go
jump
ahead.
in?
Okay,
Go ahead.
I won't be shy.
Yes.
I don't think the purpose of WRCOG was originally designed for all of the additional programs that they keep wanting to add and include, and I think that WRCOG was originally designed to administer the TUMP program. I don't think it's a secret that I don't believe that Beaumont and the Pass area in general is well represented and well serviced by WRCOG. I believe that there's a lot more focus, as there is with RCTC as well, with the rest of Riverside County. And I think the difference between those two agencies is WRCOG is built and funded on TUMP fees. And I think that the areas that are providing most of the TUMP fees at this point are going to be Beaumont, Banning, Calamasa, San Jacinto, Hemet. And I think that I would rather see that we get better representation for our area. And I'd love to see a TUMP program that's managed by a Pass area COG instead of the Western Riverside Council of Governments. I just think that I'm not in favor of JPAs because of the issues that we've run into, that we've discussed here before, where we take on more liability for JPA's pension funds. And I don't like to see an agency that seems to believe that their growth is based on more programs, so there's more administration. And so I have a lot of problems with moving forward with anything, because I don't think the purpose of WRCOG was designed or set up. It was created through the Measure A tax issues, and I think that we get short-shifted here in the Pass area. And I think the argument that you will hear constantly, and we hear both from WRCOG and RCTC, is that Temecula, Murrieta, Ontario, Lake Elsinore, they are all in more need of traffic solutions and infrastructure than we are, because they're much more messed up. Well, they're much more messed up because it wasn't addressed early enough in their history. And I think if we continue to not take a role here in our area, that we're 10 years behind them. And 10 years from now, we're going to be scrambling to try and find infrastructure to be built. So I think that it might be a good time to reach out to our neighbors, Banning and Calamasa and him in San Jacinto, and maybe even Moreno Valley, and look for if there's any interest in a more regional supportive council of governments. But I still think in that direction, I'm not in favor of a Pass area COG that's taken on all these other responsibilities. I mean, Economic Development Committee, or Economic Development Corporation, I don't believe that that's the role of a council of governments. I believe that's the role of either a city or a county. The Housing Trust, I go back to the same issues. I think that we're not going to be as well focused. We're not going to be as prioritized. And I'll avoid talking about GIS. But anyways, that's where I am. And I hope that helps you, Mike, with at least where I stand.
Very good.
Thank you.
Nice to hear that. Council? Anyone?
Well, I'll go.
All right.
Go ahead, Council Carroll. Go ahead.
You want me?
Yeah.
All right. WR card. I think I don't know where they come up with this stuff, actually. Is it demand? I see more demand to actually improve or elevate how they implement the WRCOG programs that they already have. And, it's hard to get reports out of them. It's hard to get data and information, hard data and information. The budgets aren't widely distributed. There's just so many things I'd like to see them improve on how they operate doing the tough work, which is important work. So where it comes up with, they want to start doing wholesaling electricity, and where they want to start doing all of these, projects with modeling GIS. I just don't know. I mean, is that like from some data survey that they put out and everybody said what it is that they need? And are they going to structure where there are departments that do that and then we pay for it? And I don't know. I'd like to see them do a better job of WRCOGing the pass. And, we've improved our relationship with them. We've got a long way to go. It's the most political of all of the agencies, I think. And I'd like them to take a little of the politics out of it and put a little more of the data in it to make their decisions.
Thank you.
So that's probably not very positive input for you, Mike, and I'm sorry.
Good. Thank you.
If you
Councilman.
want me to bake cookies to send along with you when you show up, let me know.
Okay,
No, that's-
how about meatloaf? Oh, go ahead, Council, William Martinez.
So I agree with both the council members. My comments are a little bit more in line with Mr. White's, though. I'm not supportive with more bureaucracy within a bureaucracy that really hasn't proven, in my books, to be very equitable. We always seem to be the little man there, and I don't think we get the voice we deserve. And, I'm almost hoping that there'd be some sort of a small city caucus within the WRCOG where you could get Banning and Calamasa and so forth together, so that when big decisions come out, some of the voices are heard, these smaller voices, as one unit. Because I don't think we get the piece of the pie that we should. And, add more to their... And again, I don't believe this is within their scope. I think their intention is gone awry, and I don't see these three things as being WRCOG, part of their business, I guess I should say. In fact, we haven't even heard. I'd like to hear from the CCA. I mean, they just had a JPA that they established, and how's that going? And you're really ready to go ahead and do more? We don't even know if that was successful or how's that's going, if they can handle that and they want to start more. I think we need to go back and at least look at that one and see how that one's going, to see if it's working and they have the right management and everything to make that to work before we start making more. So unfortunately, I'm not in favor of any of the three. I mean, I like the GIS modeling. I think it's great and has great potential. But do we need a bureau? No. So, so that's my sorry, Mike, another negative from me, but, I just don't see any positive there.
You're a brave man, Mike.
Okay, here's my 2 cents on this. I was reading on this, and the Economic Development Corporation that, will put it in there. Actually, they have it, the Economic Development Agency. I was surprised that they put this together. I mean, I could pinpoint every items that they put it in here. All on housing trust. The number one in there, construction affordable housing, that's SCAG. I mean, SCAG is coming up around October, November, all the allocations and everything. And also the grant, just really in line on this. I mean, I think Christina Taylor and Christine Day and especially, Todd Pardon, I mean, they're updated. I mean, this will be coming up. I mean, and as soon as they put the allocation, there will be a lot of grant will be, in our way. We don't need anybody else. And they know that. And you will be informed, I mean, through me on that. I mean, then the preservation and habitation of existing, that's the ADU. Has been, has been approved. I mean, we have to deal with that, the assessed dwelling unit. And they're putting on their program and actually has been approved. I mean, and then number 3 is the provision of services to unhoused, which is homeless program. And there's a lot of programs on that will be entitled for that. I mean, that's part of the, affordable and homeless program. And we have to top that. I mean, this coming, actually September is coming up. I mean, and then the down payment assistance for the developers or first-time home buyers. Council, we have this program back in 2012, and we renewed it in 2018 on that. Revisit that. I mean, I think I know we have that program. They call it MCC. We call it MCC. You could Google that and everything, but we're not promoting it, but we put it on last, 2018. And we could help a lot of people who's first-time home buyers, wants to get in our city, and we could allow even up to 20% of on the reductions under income tax on that. If you I could pull my file on that and then share it to you on that if you don't recall on that. And then GIS. I mean, GIS Modeling Service Bureau. That's the so-called Connect. And this will be approved again, not by November, but it's coming up this October. All of this modeling that they have is I'm not saying copycat or something, but is available for us. All of this is available to us. So has been formulated back then on this. I mean, reviewing right now. So and then if you look on this, I mean, hopefully we don't. Sorry, Mike. I mean, I will not go through on this. I mean, there's a lot of fees on this. On the last presentation they had, there's a lot of fees. Just like Council Carol mentioned about the energy. They did this last year. That the JPA and everything. That if we join them, there's a lot of allocation for them on the fees. So, sorry, Mike. I mean, I think we have this already on our book. Not on our book. I mean, available for us on the several given time, which is starting on September, October. As soon as they approve that, the so-called Connect, all of this, even our projects on the alternate, on Highland Spring. We could tap in on that if we do need it, because it's a project of on so-called Connect and also the SCAG. So thank you.
Okay. Well, I appreciate the feedback, and I will let you know what my first thoughts were, so that you at least you can hear what I'm thinking of as well. It's funny because you all mentioned the first thing that came to my mind when this was first presented was I always thought the WRCOG was supposed to be focused on transportation and roads and access and making things flow better. The concern that I have with both the EDC and the Housing Trust are, in my opinion, at least the way I feel now, it just feels like Beaumont continues to pay for the sins of the past, regardless of how hard we try to make amends. And some of these things become more politicized than they are based on engineering, good sound engineering practices, shall we say. So I had concerns with both of those two items. However, on the GIS, the GIS modeling and services, I think, could be valuable to cities such as Beaumont. Some of the smaller cities, they don't have a very big, robust GIS application. And so they could use help from a larger service. It is a service that we would pay for. It's supposed to be at a reduced cost. And of the three, that was the only one that our city would probably benefit to some degree. And going over this with Todd, he felt the same way. But as far as the other two go, I just don't see the need for WRCOG to waste the time and energy in those two endeavors. So those are my thoughts. We're all pretty much on the same page as far as why do any of these. So I do appreciate the input. I did want to make sure that I shared this with you so that you kind of know what's going on with where I'm at in WRCOG, and I will take feedback back to WRCOG. So I thank you for that.
Very good, Mike. Thank you.
And Mike, Nancy does make good cookies. You might want to take those with you.
Okay, and I might have to go for the meringue pie too, but that would be for me and not anybody else. So thank you all.
Thank you. Okay. Any motion? On this?
Is there a motion?
It's in here. Not to recommend it.
I think it was just discussion, right?
Discussion.
Oh, yeah, provide direction.
Asking for direction.
Yeah. I think.
Yeah, I've got direction.
Okay.
You got the direction?
Good
Okay.
direction. Boy, does
I
Thank
he.
you.
Boy, do you.
I'll be limping back to that to WRCOG.
Okay. So you got it.
You're going to need time to kind of butter it up a little bit.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you all very much.
You're welcome. So let's move on item number 18. Discussion and direction to a city staff regarding the use of the City of Beaumont's CARES Act Relief Fund allocation. Staff report.
Thank you.
Mr. Todd Parton.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. And there's one item to add to the budget. I think council member or Mayor Pro Tem Laura asked if we sent all of our money to WRCOG instead. So
Seems like we're doing
so
that.
I do need to add that as an item to the list. I'm just kidding.
Thanks. You're killing me.
You gotta put the punch on
So, all righty, so July 7th, City Council gave us direction to go ahead and submit our certification to the Department of Finance and copy it to the League of Cities, advising that the City of Beaumont planned to claim its allocation of the CARES Act. So as remember, the California budget adoption this year had the $500 million that was federal CARES money that was contributed to the state of California, and then the state in its budget then decided to allocate that on a per capita basis out to cities throughout California. So it's $12.28 per capita based on the population as of January 1st of 2020 is the basis that they used then to allocate that out. The formula resulted in the city of Beaumont being entitled to $635,569. On July 10th is the deadline to have submitted the certification to make sure that we would be eligible for our money. We did execute and submit on July 8th of 2020. So at the city council meeting, we had some discussion about some possible uses for those funds and some priorities of council moving forward. We discussed the fact that we were taking that input. We were also going to take some staff input to look at some options or maybe some ideas on how to deploy this for a Beaumont COVID program. So the guidance and the direction from the state with regard to the CARES Act allocations has been evolving rapidly over the last couple weeks. So this is really kind of launched and discussed. There really wasn't a structure that DOF had really put together. So I got to give kudos to them because they really went to work and developed guidances, worked with the Fed, looked at other states, what they were doing, actually held webinars and really started providing guidance to the cities. So to make a long story short, at the end of the day, one of what we gleaned or interpreted to be a strong recommendation coming out of DOF was that there are a few uses for which these funds were considered to be presumptive in terms of the application of those funds. And those were towards costs that went towards public safety and emergency medical, and then PPE. So for us, what that meant is that where we have our police salary and our police salary or related expenses, those are eligible costs for reimbursement or for application for these funds. And in applying them to those presumptive uses, what the state has relayed is that those are considered to be acceptable uses on their face in terms of meeting the requirements for the application of the grant funds. Those are then easier from an auditing perspective on us and on them. And there's, it's a cleaner track. It's the way to go. What that does for us, and what I've recommended in the staff report, was to say, okay, if you take our entire application of these funds, we can apply that to reimburse for police salaries and payroll-related expenses from March 1st of 2020 all the way through until the funds are fully utilized. By reimbursing, that is actually going to provide some additional funds that are going back into our fund balance. So it's dollars we've spent, it's reimbursements that are coming in, it then goes into the fund balance, and then the city has the opportunity to look at creating a COVID program out of your general fund reserve funds. So you're not taking your CARES Act money and directly trying to apply that. You're taking the CARES Act money, you're applying it to presumptive use that's already determined to have been an approved acceptable use. And then you've got some extra funds now that you can deploy. So that's the construct that I'm recommending for y'all tonight. I think it addresses a lot of the constraints, concerns, tracking, and potential auditing issues that we might get into. And it's really something that the state really, for all intents and purposes, has been really recommending that cities look at applying those funds in that direction. I think they understand the fungibility component of that kind of moving forward. So that's the overall overarching concept of what the recommendation is. Now, in terms of going back and looking at the uses of those funds, got a little spreadsheet that put together, and it's on page 657. It's attachment A to this report, and it provides for an allocation of $635,369. And it's broken out into some programming that's identified in 4 basic categories. There's a business support element, it's about $179,509. There is a resident support component of $100,000. City operational costs, which would be reimbursements for dollars you've already spent, in addition to additional items and equipment that we would need to continue to prepare the city to respond to COVID, to achieve our guidances for social distancing and workspace safety and all those kinds of things. That comes to $327,000. And then ultimately there's what we're calling an other component, which is a replacement vehicle for our Citizens Patrol. So if you like, I can kind of give you a very brief highlight of those various elements in that program. So would y'all like to hear an explanation of what those funds would do? I'll take that as a yes. Sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead.
That's very good. Okay, so on the business assistance program, that is going back to the concept that we discussed a couple times now, where we're looking at, in this case, I got it structured as a grant. So we determine local, small businesses that have physical storefronts in the community, and primarily trying to target businesses that haven't been able to acquire PPP cares or may not be able to acquire HEROES or other kind of monies that are coming forward. Restaurants, now that we've got other businesses that are opening up in kind of different environments, or businesses that have just had to shut their doors, that there's some grant dollars that could be available. First come, first served basis. We need to kind of dial in the number that we're talking about. Got a couple different ways to look at allocating those funds. One way would be on a per employee basis, like 250 per employee, up to a certain number of employees. You could do it on a dollar basis. Initially we talked about a $2,500, a $5,000, a $15,000, and a $20,000 grant award level based on size of the business when we did the original discussion. So something along those components. There's $35,000 in a restaurant support program. What we're looking at is purchasing event type barricades that we could set up in along sidewalks or in parking lot areas or in other physical areas in a shopping center or on a site that allows you to create an outdoor seating area. And then also having some shade structures that we would purchase and make available. So we're involved with a specific restaurant or shopping center owner. They want to set something up. We can provide and go out and set those pieces of equipment up, and then they're available, for an extended period of time, a couple weeks, whatever time we need to look at. And then when it's time to take them down, we go take them down, and they're part of our inventory, and we can continue to rotate those out. Ms. Starr has been actually looking at different types of barricades. The ones that we would propose to purchase if this went through are 8-foot long barricades, 100 of those. What's neat about them is they have little inset areas to them where you can actually put placards. So if a restaurant said, hey, I would like to put one out, or we're at a shopping center with multiple restaurants, they could actually brand it. They could put their business logos into those barricades, and you could see what businesses are actually there serving food in that food court area. $2,500. One of the things that the ad hoc committee, we do have Mr. Hawk with us tonight, but we've had ongoing meetings to talk about evolution of guidelines, evolution of the state of California's dimmer switch on the COVID response. And one of the things we talked about was how do we create a program that will help our citizens feel a sense of confidence that they can go out and shop in our businesses. Well, we talked about a cooperative effort where we would have maybe like a little, I don't know, the commitment form, I guess you could say, where a business would come and say, hey, Beaumont, we want to certify or self-certify that we are going to be compliant with all applicable orders. We would have a standardized poster that we would create for the Back to Business program that would be branded that they could then put in their windows, and then we would advertise the program. So this would be dollars to actually print up and have a series of posters that we could give out to businesses that said, hey, we're willing to commit to abiding by these standards. They put it in their window. Now a customer knows if I go into that restaurant or I go into that salon or I go into that retail store that they're going to be complying with social distancing, that masks are going to be required, and that there's hygiene and things like that. So it was a way to kind of do that. It's somewhat of a different spin of the San Bernardino County program where they're actually doing a certification. So somebody will submit an application, they'll certify, and then they'll give them, some materials to show that they're certified. We weren't comfortable certifying, but we said, hey, we certainly would be willing to join together and have somebody volunteer to comply, and then we would then promote that. So those were the business support elements that we talked about. The housing assistance program, one of the things that we know is coming our way is probably families and households coming into greater financial distress now after the end of July. We do know at the federal level, there's some discussion about some sort of extension of additional unemployment benefits. The $600 per week program expires here at the end of next week. And right now, there's nothing to replace that. So this program would anticipate having a fund set aside to provide some sort of financial assistance to households in need. That if they're having trouble making rent, making utility payments, those types of things, they can demonstrate that they've experienced financial loss as a result of COVID, which we could quantify through a number of means. But they would attest that they had this loss, they can provide some verification, and then there's, again, a grant that would then go to them. Again, first come, first served basis. We wouldn't necessarily try to tell them exactly how to use the money. If they want to buy food, if they want to pay utility bill, if they want to do some things like that, they've got that option. On the city operational costs, so again, the facilities cost about $70,000. Those are basically reimbursing us for a lot of things we've already spent and some additional items that we have outstanding that we still need to identify and submit. On those items and really on all these city operational costs, those that could qualify for FEMA, we would go there first. We're looking for other dollars first. Those that maybe then wouldn't be covered through FEMA specifically, or the FEMA 25% match that couldn't be covered, then we would then make up that difference here. So we're going to other places first, and these would be funds of last resort. Legal expenses, we've had legal that's had to help us put together a number of items that we've needed for employees, such as our return to work toolkit. We've had to consult with them on implications of the Family Medical Leave Act, on a variety of issues. So we'd estimate there's been about $5,000 in legal expenses that we've incurred to work through all those issues. The police salaries, with the school district not opening up now, the school district will not pay for, or they may very well terminate the SRO contract for our officers. So these funds would help to cover at least a few months of the school year. So so it would cover about, I think, what, 3 months, 4 months?
It's actually expired, so it wouldn't terminate.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Yeah. So they won't renew? There we go. And, but we definitely need our SRO. And one thing that's important to note with our SRO, when they are not doing their SRO job, they are an important part of our police patrol and police services as well. So if we lost our SRO, then we would also lose some additional support for the PD. So that's a slot that we desperately would need to keep on hand. The police lobby, we want to install a kiosk in the front lobby. Again, that allows for us to be able to handle face-to-face customer service and to maintain our social distancing. Computer hardware and software, we've looked at additional core software and hardware that we'll need to prep really executive staff for the ability to be able to work remotely. So a lot of our computer systems don't have audio and video capabilities, and so we need to kind of get everybody set up to be able to do that. Sanitization foggers, sorry. I've never heard of sanitization until I wrote that word. That's me. Anyway, but those are big commercial automated foggers that we would use to fog our buses, to fog our vehicles, so the shop would have one. So vehicles brought in for service, they would fog it for 45 minutes, whatever it takes, and then they would serve the vehicles. They'd fog it again and put it back in service. And then one in community services for them to be able to fog buildings and facilities. So restrooms, public access buildings, those types of things would be things that we do. Again, that's one that we would try to go to FEMA to see if we could get some funds to help address that first. With the custodial and the bush wash contracts, in our budget pinch and the budget cuts we made, those were two contracts that we did cut in anticipation of utilizing staff. We're anticipating that with the resurgence and the recovery that may come to the city, there may be more demand that's going to come back on the drivers. The drivers have been picking up and covering those cleaning services on the buses specifically. Our community services staff has been picking up the building maintenance costs. So instead of furloughing or laying off employees and keeping contracts, we cut contracts to keep employees. So there may be a need as we're trying to respond and recover and see some additional demands in these departments initially get re-ramped. We may need some help with those contract services. And those contract services are basically costs that would go from August through December, and then not any time past that. So this is only a partial portion of the year. And then the citizen police vehicle, we've just gotten to a routine where we're able to replace our mainline vehicles for patrol. Our citizens are a critical component that assist us, and they're a force multiplier. And as we saw tonight, we replaced one of their vehicles, but there's still two more in inventory that need to be replaced. So this would replace one of those two. One thing I would mention is in talking with, our building inspection staff, one of the operational changes that we've made is we've been right now doing remote inspections in buildings and in fire. And as we continue to bring our employees back and to, quote, mainstream them physically here, these operations, particularly on building inspections, we're going to center them out of their vehicles and keep them mobile and to do that. So we're restricting traffic coming into the building, particularly if they're out in the field. So as a consequence of that, they're going to be spending more time in their vehicles. So there is an existing inspections truck that needs to be replaced. So been looking at possibly coming back to use AQMD or some other revenue streams to help cover another vehicle that we may need to do. So that's separate and distinct. One additional thing in addition to this was also looking at potentially another $80,000 out of the utility reserve fund on the wastewater side that we could use to try to help families in need that are maybe getting in arrears on their utility bills, their wastewater bills. We've been monitoring and looking at what the level of late bills or non-paid bills are for the city. We have, since March, or I guess it was the February, it was the March, since that bill, we have not been assessing late fees. So as of the end of last week, we had about 920 wastewater accounts that were in arrears and about $550,000 of non-paid wastewater bills. Believe it or not, that's a normal year. So that's about the level that we've been putting on the teeter. Again, in anticipation that more people may be in financial stress starting next month, we think that number could grow. And so, this is another opportunity to try to be able to help provide some assistance and kind of help your utility fund at the same time. The Riverside County has implemented the two grant programs that we would look to emulate for the residential support and for the business support. So if you remember, the county launched through their CARES Act allocation a $10,000 grant for business. That was about $35 million that they had originally allocated. They're still sitting on about $25 million of it. So only about $10 million of it was actually used. they're looking at how to try to deploy those funds. They had 33 million that they had available. They took applications through July 15th for rental and housing assistance. So out of that 33 million, 28 million is still sitting there. And again, that was a program that provided up to $3,500 for up to 3 months worth of rent or mortgage payments. So the communication back from the county was that they too are looking towards probably August or September to see an elevated number of families in need. So they're expecting to see a larger number of customers, come forward to request access to those dollars. So I think we're doing a lot. There's a lot going on with all this. But this is kind of the idea that we did in terms of pulling things together, prioritizing things. Mayor, Council, turn it back to you guys to see if what else you would like us to do. One thing I would say too, one of the advantages to structuring it like we're proposing here is that you're not under the gun, because we have to provide a report to the DOF by the beginning of September on an update on how we're doing with spending the money. In addition to that, unless an exception is provided, they're only going to give you a month's worth of money at a time over 6 months. So it's going to be in 6th month in increments. So there would become a cash flow issue in trying to deploy the dollars to do programming or to do some other things. That would make it very difficult. What you haven't spent by the end of October, the state is going to take back because they don't want the U.S. Treasury to take back their money. So the state will take it back because if it's not spent by December 31st, then the U.S. Treasury will take it back. So it's the bigger fish eating the smaller fish, right? So anyway, what we envision is that this program, as I kind of laid out too, by doing it this way, we'll get our cash obligated and burned down. We can safely verify how the funds were deployed from CARES Act directly to the city. And then you've got time and you've got a little bit more discretion on how you want to deploy these dollars. And you've got a little bit more time in terms of structuring things and doing things you want to do. So, I'm sorry, Mayor, now I'd be happy to turn this back over to you.
Very good. Open for discussion.
Public comment or
Comment? Oh, public comment,
does anybody?
if there's
wait?
any.
Operator, do we have any public comments on the line?
11:20. It's difficult.
Operator, do we have any callers
No
on?
comments at this point.
Okay, thank you. I have no written comments.
Okay, thank you. Okay, open for discussion, council.
I have some when you get a chance.
Okay,
I think Nancy's ready.
I'm unmuted.
okay, go ahead,
You're muted.
Council Carroll.
Yes, it has been a quiet week. I have attended a Vets Committee meeting that I am vice chair of.
Give me a report.
And on future agendas, some ideas came up in that meeting that I would like to talk to you, the mayor, about maybe getting some
Nancy,
speakers lined up for
Nancy,
for
can I
Veterans
interrupt you?
Day.
Can I interrupt you? Sorry. This is not the report yet. It's the, we're still on item number 18.
All right, well, I'm sorry. It's very bad audio tonight at times, as others will attest to.
Yeah, that's the CARES Act.
And I don't
relief
want you to
fund.
think I was optimistic that we were moving ahead.
I love it.
Okay, so on the, I think that everything that we're doing is progressing well. I think the ideas are good. I think we're looking for the people that we can help the most. But I'm concerned that we're going to be able to match some way that we're not duplicating the same things and still find the people that need it the most. I like a lot of Todd's ideas about helping people to open the business again. I think that that's really good. And I know you, the mayor, you're looking at the small to medium-sized businesses being able to reach out and help them. So I think that as long as we do our best to focus on them and try to figure out what the criteria is that they need, outdoor seating and help with maybe marketing and advertising that they have outdoor seating, granting to very, very small companies that will have great difficulty getting money anywhere else. All of those steps, I think, are the best ones you can take. And, as long as we know we've got a significant deadline where we have to spend it and come up with policies to distribute this, let's do it.
Very
You
good.
have to get people energized, and there's nothing that's going to energize them more than thinking that you're going to give them money in a way that is going to help them.
Very good. Thank you. Council.
And let me know when you want me to do my report.
I will. I'll go ahead and give it to Council White. And then next will be Mayor Pro Temp Lara.
No, I do like the idea, the concept, the fact that the way you're redesigning this, so we're not under the gun, and that we don't have to come up with the programs and plans. And I also like the fact that you have so many different ways to help out. In other words, we're not going to get bogged down with trying to do one thing when we could do a lot of things. So I'm not. Yeah, I think there are a lot of great ideas. I do sort of want to follow up on Councilmember Carroll's comment that I think we can prioritize. I love your idea with the restaurants. I think we're going to lose a lot of restaurants in this pandemic, and Beaumont does not have enough restaurants really to lose. So I like the idea with the restaurants. I like the idea with what you guys came up with the
Back to business.
the volunteering of businesses who want to get our endorsement that they're following the rules. I think those kinds of things are things that are going to have an impact right away. The other issues, like the grants and stuff like that, I think they're high priority, but I think anything we can do to get businesses moving forward right now makes a lot of sense. And also, I wanted to bring up, I think some of the ideas that Nancy Hall came up with earlier today would be good uses of this support. Coming up with programs. I loved her idea with the CPR programs. I also think that because it looks like our kids are not going to be going to school anytime soon, that there's a lot of problems that are happening at home with kids who aren't seeing anyone other than the rest of their family every day, and also with couples having to deal with not getting a break from each other. And so I like a lot of her ideas, and I think this would be a good use of that money as well, is to provide support for our community and make sure that they understand that that we can do something for them, even if it's just supporting other services. So no, I like where it's going. I really like the fact that we're not under the gun, that we have the time to do this right.
Okay, very good. Mayor Pro Tem Mike Lara.
Yes, all good points. One of the questions I have, or I don't know if we could reach out to them, but I know that the barbershops and beauty salons operate on a subcontractor basis. I want to make sure that we can get those people covered as well, because they really need it. And now, I think it was this week, all the weeks and days seem to run together, but where barbershops and beauty salons are allowed to move outside, like the restaurants have done. So we need to have somebody reach out to them to make sure that they don't get lost in the shuffle, because they're subcontractors and they may need help moving outside as well, okay? Other than that, I like the direction that we're moving. Thank you, Mayor.
Very good. Thank you. Council Martinez.
Yeah, so I agree with everything and the direction, and I agree with the business, especially the smaller businesses in the restaurant. They are definitely going to get hit hard, so I agree with our approach on that. I want to bring up, though, another way of using money as well, though, and it came up during the discussions with the district and parents, is the idea of the child care. Because to get this working and to get the businesses and stuff going back, you're gonna have childcare issues. So what I've done is I've been talking to Elizabeth Gibbs and city manager just to kind of get some ideas. And I called up Amy Herr from the Boys and Girls Club. And I was just kind of wondering if, because the schools are most likely gonna be distant learning. They made their decision today. I don't know if anyone knows what it is yet, but I'm sure that's where it's going. So we have at least, I'm predicting probably till January before the kids go back. So you have this time where they're going to be in need. And if the businesses are picking up where the parents are going back to work, we have this issue. So I asked Boys and Girls Club if, what are their numbers if we were try to expand childcare a little bit? And now we're at Chatney. We had helped them out with the grant for Chatney, but that's going to expire soon with that money. And right now there are about 30 kids or so, 35. They don't have a lot of room to expand. They can expand, Amy said, up to maybe 60 or so, but they would need, help in certain areas. But also, and I asked her about these students that are there, are they going to end up coming back? What has she heard from parents? And she said, well, the parents are most likely going to come back, and what they want to do probably is start prioritizing those families that have two working people that use the child care for priority, because some are just using it for convenience and to help get them out of the house and so forth, which is fine. They need that. But now that we're getting closer to the business and the school overlap problem, I was wondering what could we do to help these families with child care. Now, we don't want to get back into childcare business, don't get me wrong, that has nothing to do with it. But we have a good partner with Boys and Girls Club that are doing a remarkable job, and they always have been. So I was wondering, how can we supplement to help them help the families? So we went over some numbers, and childcare is not a cheap business, I see. But there's some options, and I just wanted to throw these at you for numbers and ideas so that we can kind of maybe consider that, maybe modifying numbers here, or maybe pick one of the 2 or 3 different things the Boys and Girls Club would need to expand their program. And that's just with the Chatney that we started with. That's only really an increase of 30 students or so, which is in my opinion, still not a lot. It's still not getting a big number families covered, although it's really helping those that are there. But I also asked her, okay, so if you partner with the district, and let's say that you talk to the district, and she has been in communication with the district about possibly going back and using some of their, empty classrooms and so forth. And right now they're checking to see if anyone can even be on campus with the school closed and all these little issues. So, I asked her, well, how about if you went to some of the churches in the area, or some of the areas that have, larger like classrooms that they use that they may not be using during the week. How creative could you be? And she's very open to what they could possibly do. It's just whether, they have funding for that or not. So I was talking to our numbers, and here are some numbers that we talked about. And nothing set in stone, and these are all preliminary. She wanted to make sure that I would give that waiver out. That these are not actual, could be less, could be more, we don't know. But she was saying, well, if we stayed at Chatney, let's say from August through January or December, then what they might need would be...
I'm not on mute, Wayne.
What they might need is maybe covering the utilities. So if there were a way that maybe we could use grant money to cover the utilities for them, then they might be able to keep running, doing what they're doing, but not having that expense. So the utility cost, she estimated, it runs about maybe $24,000 if we take it all the way through January. Now, these are just, again, preliminary. She was just looking over utility bills and so forth she's paid in the past, and there aren't numbers. But that's one way of helping to supplement. If we could use some of this money to cover the utilities, maybe they can expand and keep that program going. I asked about, well, how about the tuition that you're charging the families? It's pretty high. It's very high, actually. So if there a way that we can do maybe like grants, where we can have families say, okay, maybe we can give them a grant, couple of $100 per student or so, that could take about 30 grand or so just with 150 students. So, there are things that we could do, and again, I understand that the money is really finite, and sure, we could sit down and have a wish list of everywhere we'd want to go. But I wanted to make sure you had these numbers and this idea. So maybe we can set some aside, maybe we can look more into it. I didn't know, and I told her that I would bring it to council and get kind of a feedback and a consensus of maybe this is, beyond us. We're already doing enough with the housing program. Maybe we can, these are just things that we can look at too. She also mentioned that, she could use help on just things like separators, having the kids go into the Chatney Center and kind of move a little bit into the gym area, but have separators where we can still have the kids. But they're still following the distance rule. She still has to have them 6 feet apart. She still has to follow everything that the guidelines are. And therefore, those are parameters that she has to maintain. So if there's ways that we can help with that, whereas, it's kind of like the barricade thing, we can get separators that maybe we can use, for us for different things. I don't know. So that's what I wanted to bring forth to council. I wanted to get this other idea, and it came up after we had already talked about this stuff, because it came up at the parent meeting, and parents were, you can see there's high anxiety out there. There's a lot of emotion, and it's just a lot of uncertainty. And I can feel for that, especially when you have the two parent working and you have the kids that need to go somewhere. She also said that she would be able to, and she was going to have to talk to the city about the internet at Chatney and so forth, but they are willing to help them with their long distance learning and stuff while they're there. So an idea I wanted to plant in your heads to kind of see if there was money there that you might want to allocate for that, or put a placer on, or think about it as we go down our list. And that was my main thing. I did want to mention the one thing, and that's another area that I had Elizabeth look at, Ms. Gibbs, take a look at busing, because when we do go back, most likely we're not going to be able to pack the buses and stuff as the kids go back. And what that means is you're looking at more buses, longer wait times, more routing, and that's going to be an issue. Now, unfortunately, the numbers that Elizabeth brought back, I believe, are just unsustainable. I don't believe they're feasible for us to do. I mean, they're in hundreds of thousands of dollar range. So I don't see us doing that, but I wanted to be the one to warn council that when those days come, you're going to start hearing some public about that, because they've now switched their focus on us as the bus provider. Unfortunately, because the district went away with that. And even though we're not in the business for that, it's just a kind of a, it's a community service we do, but you're going to hear that. I'm sure you're going to hear that.
Yeah, and to put that in context, to handle the current student traffic we have today, we're talking 14 trips, because when you hit the social distancing in the bus, so you're talking 4 to 5 hours to transport kids in the morning and then again in the afternoon, because you can't get the capacity on the bus. Yeah.
So I just wanted to throw that on food for thought for things coming in the future. But the main focus I was wanted to concentrate on was is the child care.
I really like those ideas. I think helping the Boys and Girls Club, I think, is a great use of the money. So I'd love to hear more about how we can do it. But I'm definitely behind you on that.
So, Julio, quick question for you. So, with the Boys and Girls Club, I think one big issue that districts are struggling with is there's not all families that have access to computers, that can buy computers or have, internet access at home. Is there the possibility of providing dollars to the Boys and Girls Club to be able to buy laptops and iPads?
No, I would say not, because the district's responsible for that now.
Okay.
With the new governor's mandate, everyone has to have connectivity and a device.
Okay.
And the district's reassured that they're striving for that, and in fact, they're almost like 90-some% there. It's more of the connectivity, they're having problems with the hotspots and stuff like that.
Okay, okay.
But yeah, so I don't think we'll need that, and I asked her about her supplies and what she would need. They're a very hands-on approach, which is ironic in this type of a day, but she still has them doing a lot of projects and stuff where they're building and drawing and stuff like that, so that's good. But now that they'd be there during school, it takes on a little different picture now, because they're gonna be also doing stuff on the internet. So some of the money might have to go to IT, I don't know, she had mentioned something about Chatney Center not being prepared or so forth.
I think most of the problem also how to connect to Wi-Fi on that. I mean, I don't know how we're gonna resolve that. And I know some of the kids, you know, if you go to school or high school, they have to look for a hotspot so they could have a hot, you know, to connect on the computer on that. I know that.
Well,
some
and
of the
she
kids.
said now, because Chatney doesn't have it, they've been having their own hotspots they've been using, which is getting them by, but when you're talking about full instruction using the
Oh.
Chromebook, you have to have the connectivity there,
Mhm.
so. So that's my proposal. Thanks, thank you, Mayor.
Very good, yeah. My side is the, you know, going back to businesses, and I like to help all the small businesses in there, and then up to the medium. And they're the one who really, you know, got hurt on their businesses on this. I do support that, I mean, on the school. I love kids, I mean, you know. And, you know, but the thing is, all of this, you know, who's in the business, they're struggling right now, and, you know, they borrow money from their credit card and you know, the 3 months or 4 months. Now, some people will say that, you know, if you do help them, they'll leave. No, that's the reason they're here. They love the Beaumont, you know, community in here. So they will be in the business. If not, they'll be out of business. Some of the businesses that I know, 3 of them that they left. I mean, because you know, they cannot sustain that. But most of the barbershop, the hair salon, and everything, just like Mayor Pro Tem Lara mentioned, they're the one who's really in need. That they came back only you know, a month ago, and then now they're struggling again. And I'll repeat myself. I mean, you know, they borrow money just to be in the business, and that's the one that really needs help. I'm not talking about the dollar amount that big. I mean, you know, we're talking about the 1,000, 3,000, or you know, a month that they have to survive on this. So, okay. Any comment? So we're midnight.
Well, is this, I don't know, is this direction or?
Any, are we looking for direction on this?
So do we want to try to look to program 60,000 towards child support?
Well, I think, I don't know if we, well, I mean, that would be a good number, but, you know, I don't know, did you want to talk more to them to see what their numbers would really look like? Try to get more for the money. I don't know if it would be covering utilities just to cover Chatney. Would it be giving the grants to the family? But she was talking about, you know, she could charge up to $800 a kid, because you're not talking about before and after school anymore. You're talking about a whole 8-hour day, you know, and that's different, you know, because Boys and Girls Club is structured for before and after school. They're not structured for the whole day. So this is really daycare is what it's turning into, well, with the instructional component on it. So, you know, do you guys want to put a number on it now, or do you want some more
Yeah,
research to see?
you throw that number. I mean, you know, that's
I mean,
a
I don't-
number.
I
No,
don't,
I think what we're being asked here to do is to direct staff to prepare a budget amendment to implement this. So I'd just like to see those numbers alongside all the other numbers we're talking about.
I don't think I'm comfortable going too much higher than that because of, you know, but I think that would go a long way.
And so the question is, where would we, I mean, do you want to keep the balance in this 635 range? Or are you willing to go above that?
Oh, but you mentioned there's 80,000 maybe we could allocate on that while ago. Is that the
Well,
one,
there's 80,000 that I was proposing that's in addition to these numbers that would come out of your utility reserve to help, families in need, households in need with utility
okay.
payments.
So we could get the 60,000, reallocate some of the,
Well, that's not in these numbers.
I
so-
know.
Yeah, that would be for the utilities.
I know, I
Yeah.
mean, that's the one,
Right.
I'm mentioning that, okay.
Right, so there's 100,000 in here for housing assistance.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if, if there's other things in here that you would want to reduce or eliminate from this list in
Well-
favor of doing that, or do you want to go above the 635?
I don't know about going above. I thought maybe you'd go back and look and see where you can trim some of the other numbers, maybe prioritize from the city point of view. Maybe we can hold off on the car, and trim some here. Maybe we can, get the couple of foggers that are cheaper, or find a different brand, shave off, something here and
Okay.
there.
Okay.
That's what I thought we could do.
If you ask me, my priorities would be what we talked about as far as getting the businesses going and then finding a way to help people go back to work. And I think helping with the childcare is going to help some people be able to go back to work. Well, we can't do everything, but I agree with you on some of the other issues that could possibly wait.
Mayor, I saw Mayor Pro Tem Laura have his hand up.
So did Nancy.
Mike? Go ahead.
I mute.
Unmute.
There we go. How's that?
I know it's late.
It's hard to hear all the details that are going on over there. So I apologize if because I'm sure I missed something, but I know that we're talking about putting money towards daycare. But what ages are we looking at? Did we talk about the ages? Because if you're talking about school age kids, they're going to have to be homeschooled, right? I mean, this is what I think. This is what we're talking about: is that these kids are going to be on the computers doing
Homework.
online schooling, and will have to be doing that, I'm assuming, from home, because I don't know if you want somebody that's handling daycare to ensure that my child is getting their online education. Does that make sense?
Can I answer that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Mike, when I talked to Amy, she had said that they are trained and qualified to help them to an extent, but they would have the agreement with the parents that they can't make them do their work, nor are they qualified to be tutors for them. They can only guide them to make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing and so forth. But these won't be, these are going to be for those parents that have no choice. They're both trying to
Right.
go back to work, and they're young kids that don't have an older brother or sister to watch them, so they're going to be home too. These are the ones that have the younger kids that have to have somewhere. And if at least they get some social, contact with others and do some work, you can always hopefully pick up when they get back home with the parents. But that's what we were looking at, was the younger crowd that didn't have any care at all at home, including
Okay.
siblings.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. So we haven't looked at to make sure that we have enough Wi-Fi capacity at the Chattanooga Center where this is going to take place. I know they mentioned about laptops, but the school provides those. But I think we may need to look at Wi-Fi, or did you guys already talk about that?
Yeah.
We mentioned it just a little bit, that they would
Okay.
have to look into that because it doesn't
Okay.
have connectivity very well.
Again, I apologize. It's just
That's
difficult to details. Thank you.
You're welcome. Nancy, you have some question? Mute. You're on mute.
Can't read those lips, sorry. She says, oh, yes.
There you go.
Okay,
Oh.
I'm muted, sorry. Jack came in the room and I muted it and then I forgot to unmute. Well, I think it's a good idea always to go and see what we can do to supplant childcare. Because Councilmember White is right. You can't go to work if you can't take care of your kids. And if your kids are homeschooled age, it's not just childcare anymore. They have to be able to be online and learning. So I think that in itself is a very defined objective. And if we can structure that so that we can accomplish that, then we've enabled especially working mothers, single working mothers. I mean, they got to go out and make an income, and they're the ones that are the most relied upon to do most of the other things around the house, and then also to try to do homeschooling on top of it. That's a lot of stuff. So, yeah, I'd like to see if we could structure something. And that fits in nicely with being sure that you can help people that are in hair salons and barber salons get back to work, and provide help for them to set up outside. And so when you've done that, you've actually started a grassroots level that would never have been able to get that strung together in any type of funding. And if the city does that, then you've done marathon work just by doing that alone.
Good. Thank you, Nancy. Todd, have you dissect the numbers?
Yes. All right, so what's the
All
budget?
right,
What's the
we added more on.
So if we go in that direction, your 80,000, we will use it.
I think Mike was right. I don't know.
Oh, Mike? Go ahead, Mike.
So, real quick, the number that we threw out was 50,000, is that correct?
For childcare?
Yes.
Well, she roughly, I mean, it ranged. If you were to help her with utilities and then did some sort of a grant things, it could go to about 50 or 55, yes.
Okay, so here's what I would like to propose, and maybe you bring it back and we look at the number, but instead of you take 25,000 out of the line number 1, the business assistance program, and you take 25,000 out of the housing assistance program, and you put that 50,000 into daycare. I think, because I don't know if we'll ever hit those numbers that high, but that's just my suggestion, Todd. So hopefully that helps.
Can I say something on that? I mean, why don't we do this? I mean, instead of hitting the business assistance program, why don't we take it on the housing assistance program? Because they're the one who really needs it. I mean, 142, I think we're going to use up on that. I mean, there's restaurants in there, and then other small businesses. And then I think this is the most, needed on the business program. And then we could hit it on the assistant program on that.
But the only concern I have is that on the business assistance program, you can only take money either from this program or from the county. You can't take it from both, and there's more available from the county. So I'm just concerned that we'd have all this money set aside that we wouldn't be able to use because you can't double dip.
That's
So
correct.
that's the only reason I'm saying that, but I'm good with whatever you guys want to do.
That's correct, Mike. But I'm addressing the smallest people who's in the business right now. I'm not talking
Okay.
about the big one. I mean,
Okay.
I'm talking about the small ones that
Okay.
they're struggling right now on their finances.
So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna look to find $50,000 in here, and I'll see if we can come up with some savings down on the city operational costs. So
Okay.
maybe there's some things we can do in contract, maybe we can find some cheaper equipment for the foggers, things like that. So we'll look there, and we will look to not to touch business support and resident support.
There you
Those are
go.
the last things we touch. Does
Okay.
that sound good?
Sounds good to me. Yeah, that will cover you'll find the 50,000
I
of
think
that.
Barry.
Oh, I think Barry had a question.
Oh, Barry, go ahead.
I just have one question for everybody. Who's going to manage all this? Have you thought about the cost to manage these programs and oversight and make sure that they comply and do what you want and the money isn't flushed down the drain? That's my only comment. That has to be a cost, managing your programs.
Yeah, can I, on this, the next question is actually, to improvise the questioners. I mean, the applications, the questioners and everything. So in case of audit and everything, I think Todd really is structured already on helping this program within our staff. Is that correct? I mean,
Yeah, so I think if we structure the grants correctly, you're really talking some one-time applications until the funds are gone. And so we'll have attestations and there'll be some initial review processes. So I think we can handle this with in-house staff. I don't, if we get into loans and things like that, that's an entirely different scenario.
that's different.
But I think we're talking a lot more simplified programming here that I think we can handle. I mean, we'll have some extra hours and things like that to handle it, but we're only talking a couple peak periods to accommodate that.
And then also you could utilize the ad hoc committee back to business.
We have a couple council volunteers that have lots
No,
of
on
hours.
that ad hoc back to business. So use that community, man. I mean,
Oh, boy.
I figure there's 4,000 hours between our two
I know,
council volunteers.
So this committee with chief and everybody there. So
All right.
I think that will work.
So, you have direction?
Yes, sir.
You got that?
All right.
I got it. I got
Okay,
it.
very good.
I'm going with 1 o'clock now.
Oh, he's looking at, oh my God. Okay, let's move on.
Yes, please.
Okay. Do we need a motion on that? Do we not?
No, it was
No,
direction.
We got okay already. Okay,
Direction.
item number 19, approval of city attorney invoices for the month of June 2020. John, what you gonna say?
Yes, Mayor, because this affects my law firm, I'm going to recuse myself and I will step out for about a minute or so and then I'll come back in.
Make it a minute.
Make it a myth.
Like a rundown?
Mayor, I'd like to move to approve the invoices for the amount of $97,745.65 for the city attorney invoices for the month of June 2020.
I'll second.
Councilmember White,
Yes.
Councilmember Martinez.
Yes.
Councilmember Carroll,
Yes,
Mayor Pro Tem Lara.
He's gone.
Oh, no.
He's disconnected.
He says, I don't stay up past midnight.
All right, I'm going to mark absent on his. Mayor Santos.
Yes. Oh,
I had a neat spreadsheet. Would anybody like it?
okay, legislative updates and discussion. Item number 20. Carl, he's up. Woo!
He's
I was-
about to have a baby.
As of
He will
4
never
minutes
sleep
ago, I
again.
was gonna say, good evening, council, but now I'm gonna change that to good morning,
morning.
council. And I'll go through this very quickly. The state legislature is still on recess and they're gonna be coming back July 27th. So we'll be seeing what they're doing at the state level. The report has the governor's action summary. Project Home Key is an interesting program coming out of Department of Housing and Community Development for $600 million available to local governments to purchase and rehab housing, hotels, and vacant apartment buildings to convert them into interim or long-term housing. So that's really not our forte, but at least we're going to look at that and explore those funding options. And then at the federal level, we're all hearing about the rumors going on with phase 4 COVID relief packages. There's some dynamics in place on both sides of the aisle where there's some sticking points. So that's been, in my opinion, the delay in terms of seeing the phase 4 come forward. So we're tracking that, and as soon as it gets packaged up and presented, we're going to see exactly what really all it entails. And then lastly, at the federal level, Congress, specifically the House Appropriations Committee, is going over the different appropriations bills for fiscal year 2021. And those are starting to hit the floor starting next week. So we're going to be checking those out and see how the federal budget plays out for the next fiscal year. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Very good, Kyle. Thank you. Discussion? Question? Okay,
Can I go first on the council report?
okay, we go under, thank you, Kyle. Okay, council reports, Council White.
Can I,
I get to go first. I want to challenge the rest of my colleagues to make their council report shorter than mine. I have nothing to report.
Okay. Council Lara, oh no, wait. Carol. Nancy Carol.
oh,
Go ahead.
okay.
You requested it.
Well, I'm ready.
You've been waiting.
I went to a veterans meeting that I'm co-chair of, and we had some really interesting speakers and presentations. So it got me thinking that I need to talk to the mayor about maybe bringing in some or one or two of those speakers to give us a little bit of information on what some of the veterans programs are that are available in our community. And I thought if we plan that to come up around Veterans Day, that would be a good timely presentation. So I'll be talking to you, Mayor, about what some of the offers are, and then we'll see if you're interested in bringing it forward.
Oh, yeah, good. Thank you.
That's it.
That's it? Okay. Mayor Pro Temp Mike Lara?
Yeah, just one quick thing. I would like to, the community policing with the video with Sergeant Galetta and the story behind that, I would really like to see that get pushed out on our social media. It's a great story, and I think it kind of goes along with what Ms. Hall was talking about, getting good news out there. So anything we can do to get that out would be great. Also, I'd like to get information out on what we're doing with the pool. If we can get that out on social media, because I'm getting a lot of emails in regards to us not doing the pool when we are trying to basically look at options, and the pool was closed because of a leak and drains. So we need to get that information out to the public because there's a lot of misinformation that's floating on out there. That's all I have. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Council Martinez?
Yeah, I attended the Financial Audit Committee Zoom meeting on the 13th. We had an ad hoc committee on the 16th, and I tried to participate in the League of Cities Zoom meeting, and they had some technical difficulties, so it was kind of an in and out thing, but I did hear a few things from them. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, very good. The only thing I could say is, stay safe out there and, be patient to everybody and nothing to report. Thank you. Adjourn. Oh, wait. No. I don't see Steve. Go ahead, Barry. You have to unmute.
Okay, I'm ready. In essence of time, I'll basically say the Finance Audit Committee, we reviewed the financials. Jeff went over where we are, and we're still holding pretty much with what last month showed, that we should have a surplus in the general fund of about 1.3 million, and the wastewater fund should show a surplus of about 300,000. So we're tracking there. Just a quick review of the 6 projects that the council had requested the Finance Audit Committee to review. I'm just going to go over those quickly. The CFD program with the realtors, that's on hold right now because of COVID. The RFP is complete. We did run an RFP program. Investments, finance right now, Jeff and his team are rewriting our policy, updating the policy, and that should come to you next month. IT security is complete. We did have a briefing with the IT people, and they kind of showed us all the nice stuff they have without giving away all the secrets. So that's complete. Grant reporting, we had a great presentation on that, and that'll be ongoing. We know how the process works, and we'll see on an ongoing quarterly basis what is occurring in the grant process. And the only program that we had put on hold due to the difficulty with finance being caught up with audits and everything else, and now they're back with the new audit team, is the program for the general public on finance, understanding some of the finances, the city finances, simplistically, so that it will answer some of their questions instead of looking at a lot of numbers and not knowing the right thing. So that's it. That's what we have. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, economic development update. Kyle, are you still there?
They had
We-
no meeting.
Yeah, we didn't have a meeting, so there's really nothing to report.
Oh, okay. So I'll jump in on, I don't see Steve in there.
Steve is not here tonight, but I have the public records request update if you'd like that quickly.
Okay.
For the month of June, there were 21 requests, 21 completed requests, and 3.75 hours allocated.
Okay. City Attorney report. John?
Yes, Your Honor. Briefly, there are 5 cases that are on our list where the city has potential liability exposure currently, and I wanted to just give you a brief update because I believe that list at the next council meeting will be down to 1 case. In the Urban Logic versus City of Beaumont case, the city acquired the claim through the bankruptcy proceedings against the city. So we now own that claim. There was an appeal filed. That appeal was dismissed. So the city now owns that claim. So therefore, there is no longer any liability exposure for the city of Beaumont in the Urban Logic versus City of Beaumont case. And so that matter will come off the list. The next matter, Serato versus the City of Beaumont, is a case that's been pending against the city. As I had reported to you previously, we filed a motion for summary judgment. That got delayed because of COVID. That motion for summary judgment was heard last week, and the judge ruled in the city's favor. And so the city has won that case. So Serato versus City of Beaumont will be coming off the list. The next case, Charles Peters, DBA Pioneer Mobile Village versus the City of Beaumont. The city had filed a demur in that case. The judge last week granted the demur in favor of the city. The case against the city was ordered dismissed by the court. There's some procedural things that we have to do to finalize that ruling, but the court ordered that the city be dismissed from the case without leave to amend. So that case should be coming off the list. And then finally, Loan Depot versus Penman. We believe that case has been settled. We've signed a stipulation to resolve it. The city doesn't really have much exposure in that case anyway. That's really reformation of a deed case, and the city just got named in that because we had a lien. And so that case should be coming off the list. And so that'll just leave us. I'm hopeful that the next time I report to you, we'll just have 1 case, and that'll be the Aguirre versus City of Beaumont case where the city faces exposure. So we should be down to a list of 1. And as you know, we don't put on our list the cases that the city has pending against third parties where we are pursuing damages on behalf of the city, where the city has no exposure, but it's pursuing damages. And in that category, we do still have the City of Beaumont versus McFarland and Anderson. And as you know, we have a settlement in that case. We're working on finalizing the settlement where the city will be paid at least $1.5 million. And then we also have a case pending against Norton Rose former Bond Disclosure Council. We have a case pending against ULC, and you're very familiar with who they are. That case is still pending. And then we have an insurance claim against AIG, and we're working with WRCOG on pursuit of that insurance claim. And so that's my report for this evening.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Okay, city manager report, Todd.
I think the endangered species of the month is the NFL, I think.
Oh.
So,
Is it the Bronco?
yeah. Good news is we won't lose the Super Bowl this year. That's for sure. So I think want to take a little bit of time to give a shout out to Nicole and to Edgar and Edgar's team. They've been fighting through technology issues, and so we've rushed to try to pull technology together. Anyway, they've done an amazing job. So I know we've had some glitches, but again, they've done a very good job trying to work through that. I will say we'll be looking for some alternatives to the phone bridge. This is not acceptable, and so we definitely need to look for alternatives and different ways to cover that need. So hopefully we'll have something new we can deploy by our next meeting, or at least have our glitches figured out. So, and then kind of a little bit more positive news. That story with regard to Sergeant Galetta, we actually had posted it on our PD website, our social media site.
Very nice.
And that was actually picked up by Cal Chiefs, and it was taken statewide through the Cal Chiefs group. So I'll make sure I talk to Ms. Starr to see if there's some additional work we can do on the other city side. Yeah, we can kind of help push some of that out. So it has had statewide exposure.
Yeah.
And then movie theater still going up. Roof is even getting tighter. And we did issue certificate of occupancy for in and out for some. I heard people around here might like that. So so they should be opening up hopefully fairly soon. So that concludes your city manager report for tonight.
Very good. Thank you. Okay. Future agenda items. Any? Okay. None. Next meeting will be August 4th, 2020, and adjourn this 12:18 morning.
That's going to go in your file.
Night, everybody.